Sweet. Well, thank you guys for all jumping on a Tuesday night so late when you could be doing anything else like eating Betty's burgers, chilling out, watching a movie, watching Netflix, any of the above. But tonight I want to sort of cover over the next 30 minutes, and my intention for the next 30 minutes is to help you guys identify a few key areas that you can work on in order to improve your quality of life. Who we got? I'm muted. Hey, El, how you doing? Good, everyone muted. A few key areas that I identified over the last 5 years that have helped me improve my quality of life and my self-esteem, self-confidence in those areas. And I'm sure, once you've got the awareness around that, you can start doing some work for yourself to start improving those areas. So for myself, how it all initially started for me and how I got down the road of now coaching people to find their, identity and create more self-awareness in their life and overall improve their mental well-being, stemmed off the back of a professional rugby career. And after that, falling into that lack of identity or loss of identity once I hung up the boots and sort of was faced with the daunting task of working out how I was going to live the rest of my life. So that was, 2013, that the dream died. And ultimately my identity as an athlete and as my idea as a professional sportsman was gone. So it was one of the most daunting things, and it sort of pushed me down the track of drinking a lot of alcohol, finding comfort in, sleeping with heaps of women. And that's not bragging. That's just really bad now that I look back at it. Doing a lot of drugs and not having any self-respect or respecting other people, right? So it got me in a heap of trouble, which, ultimately has led me here today. So one of the biggest awakening moments for me was in 2014. I was playing rugby just for a local club. And one of the guys who I was actually playing the position next to him, I didn't really have a good relationship with him, but he gave me a book called The 4 Agreements. And if you guys haven't read that, I'd recommend reading that. And at the time I was just desperate for change. So I took the time to read that book, and it was the most boring book I have ever read. But I learned so much from that book, and it ultimately turned me to personal development and really trying to recreate my identity, because at that point in time, my identity was a guy who, was going out on the weekends, doing the whole 9 to 5, Monday to Friday, then get drunk all weekend, right? Do drugs, play up, and then just repeat the cycle. And that's all I thought I was ever going to do. And deep down, I just felt unfulfilled. And I really felt like I was here to do more than just continue that cycle, right? And a lot of the people in my life were still doing that. My father was doing that. A lot of my mates were doing that. So I didn't really know that you could do anything else. And I saw all the people who, were super happy, super wealthy, traveling lots, were, had some lucky gene or had just been gifted that kind of lifestyle. And eventually I learned that, that's complete shit. They just worked hard and was resilient to creating that lifestyle. Thirsty. So let's jump into the first slide. If you have any questions as well, just drop them in the chat and I'll do my best to keep up with them. So let's go through one of the biggest things, like obviously going through that whole journey, was understanding that your mental well-being can be completely controlled, right? The thoughts that we have, the emotions that we experience, and even the food that we fuel ourselves with all have a huge impact on our overall mental well-being, right? So the moment that I realized that all the bad thoughts that I was having, the depression, the anxiety, the lack of self-respect, I was in complete control of how that all happened. It was when I immediately, and I don't recommend everyone does this, but I completely changed my environment within 2 weeks. Mate, you can make some noise. Got mate tiptoeing around here trying not to make any noise, because I knew ultimately that if I wanted to improve my quality of life, it was up to me to put myself in the best environment, fuel my body with the most positive information, whether it be through podcasts, hanging around good people, going to personal development events, having a coach, and just having all around good people in my life, right? That ultimately led me to improve my own quality of life, because the thoughts that I was having 5 years ago that I was, never going to amount to anything. I wasn't worthy. I was, an alcoholic. I was constantly fucking up. Like, those were the thoughts that kept going through my mind. And obviously, they're not positive. So every day when I was waking up, or if I'd wake up on Friday, Saturday, Sunday, or Monday, hungover, or going through a come down from drugs, it just amplified those negative thoughts. So then going back to realizing that, hey, if I start fueling myself with positive thoughts, then, and also back away from the drinking and the alcohol and the negativity, I can amplify those positive thoughts and ultimately amplify the quality of my life. Right. So when we're looking at mental well-being, I want to give you guys a few educational points around these things, so you can then go off and do your own research and look at ways to improve these areas if you do feel they are lacking for yourself. Just going to check the chat quickly. Let's see. So mental well-being obviously refers to the positive state of your psychological and emotional health, and it indicates that a person is able to function cognitively and emotionally in a manner that is productive and fulfilling, right? So I feel so many of us are brought up in a society now where that balance isn't there anymore, right? We're all chasing something, and a lot of the time it's a materialistic possession, or it's a title, it's a status, it's financial, right? But so many of us are feeling unfulfilled, and we never spend the time to work out who we really are and what we need, from an inner value point of view, to have a fulfilled life. Because I went to an event on Saturday, and a lot of these guys were multi-millionaires, and there was one guy in particular who was a super wealthy guy, and he was saying that he's worked with multi-millionaires, just to elaborate more on that. But one of the biggest things was like they were just giving advice that don't chase the dollar signs, because once you get another zero on, you're just chasing the next zero, when ultimately it's really trying to figure out what you need to just be fulfilled, right? And that was one of the biggest things that I was lacking. And even going back to my story, when I was playing rugby, like all I was ever chasing was status. I wanted to be a professional athlete. I wanted to be famous. I wanted the money that came with all of that. And I just was chasing all these materialistic or external things to hopefully bring me fulfillment. And when I was getting them, I was still lacking that fulfillment. And I never knew why. I just thought, hey, maybe I'm doing something wrong. Maybe I need to, and that's what pushed me down drugs and alcohol, because I was still searching for a feeling. Right. So going back to wellbeing, it's a multi-dimensional construct, as you can read here. It involves more than just being in a good mood or feeling happy, right? In addition to positive emotions, well-being is achieved through optimal development and a meaningful life and satisfaction of basic human needs. Okay, so that then is going back to, you hear a lot of people banging on now. It's like, if you pursue your passion and learn how to monetize it, like, you'll have one of the best and most fulfilling lives. Obviously, you got to do the research to figure that out. But rather than just being happy, because I was happy when I was getting drunk, I was happy when I was doing drugs, but then the ripple effect of that led me to be more unhappy than that ultimate happiness that I got in the first place. So it's then referring to, like I said earlier, the multi-dimensional, I'm tongue-tied, multi-dimensional aspect of why you're doing things, right? So when we go back to looking at how you want your life to turn out, most people know what materialistic things they want: the house, the car, where they want to live, how much money they want to have, and what their family looks like. But they have no idea of who they want to be or how they want to show up in this world as a person, right? So we neglect the most important thing in that whole situation, which is us and how we're going to show up, right? And so obviously you can see the next 2 points. Mental well-being is a conscious knowledge of one's own character and feelings, right? And most of us, and I can, went through this a lot, I never understood my own emotions. So a lot of the time when I was feeling sad, when I was feeling embarrassed, when I was feeling unfulfilled or empty, that would just come out as anger or aggression. And it wasn't always physical. It'd sometimes be emotional abuse to people. And I would just put it in other ways, but I always just thought I was an angry motherfucker. Right? But at the end of the day, there was so much more going on that I didn't understand, and I wasn't told that you could learn about. Okay, so from my personal experience, as you can see, that I believe mental well-being is enhanced by improving your own emotional intelligence. What we're going to talk on now. So what is emotional intelligence? Obviously, the ability to recognize and understand your own emotions and understand and influence your own emotions. Okay, so in practical terms, really, it's being aware of the emotions that can drive our behavior and impact people. Okay, so both positively and negatively, and learning how to manage these emotions, both ours and other people's. Now, why this was so important, I used to allow other people to piss me off and allow them to make me angry, make me embarrassed, make me nervous, and ultimately, a lot of the stuff that I was focusing on from these people, I was never able to control. So if I was pissed off at something that I was never going to be able to change. So I was wasting time building up anger over that, right? And a lot of the time I didn't have the own self-awareness to understand what that emotion was coming from. And for example, if I saw someone wealthy, I would, turn that into jealousy and then resentment. And I would, make all these ridiculous excuses as to why they're there. And I'm sitting at home, broke and pissed off at myself. But now I understand, how my emotions make me feel, how my emotions make me retaliate or think about other people and judge. And I'm not saying don't judge people, because it's really hard to do and I still pass judgment, but I'm able to understand why I'm judging people and understand whether it's an emotional thought or am I being logical about the situation, which is super important in itself. So when you're looking at emotional intelligence as well, obviously we're going to talk about self-awareness now, but the other key areas are obviously self-awareness, self-regulation, motivation, okay, empathy and social skills. Because if you have emotional intelligence around all of those areas for yourself, like what motivates you, how to be, fit in with social groups or network, like all these things can really enhance the quality of your life. And a story around that, like for myself, I was not very social 5 years ago. I couldn't speak well in front of people. Okay, I swore much more than I do right now. But a way that I got over that fear was I became an Uber driver. I did that for 2 years, and it forced me to learn to be able to have conversation with, people from all different walks of life. Okay, which has now got me to the point where I can make a conversation with anyone and get, really connected and have people opening up to me about all kinds of stuff within, 10 minutes of having a chat with them. Right. So just like anything in life, all of this is, learnable or teachable, coachable. Okay. So don't just think that you're not good enough to do any of this. So if you want to improve your mental well-being, you got to work on it. You just got to address what area you need to start on first and understand that it will take time and it will be confronting, but ultimately you can move forward to where you want to go. So what is self-awareness? Self-awareness essentially is the first step to creating what you want and mastering your life. So where you focus your attention, your emotions, your reaction, personality, and thoughts, emotions, and behaviors. Okay. So ultimately, 5 years ago, I was focusing, or prior to that, I was focusing on football, women, money, and just creating all this materialistic lifestyle, right? I was never, not once, apart from school, was I ever developing myself. I don't think I ever read a book unless it was maybe Goosebumps and Harry Potter, right? So the moment that I learned that I could actually work on myself, and thinking here now, like it makes sense that if you work on yourself in the physical aspect by going to the gym or doing some form of exercise, it should be common sense that, hey, if I want to work on my mind, is pick up books, learn from people who are doing things that you want to do, listen to podcasts, go to personal development events or events that are going to educate you in things you want to learn about. But none of that made sense to me at that point in time. And I think a lot of people are lacking that, right? So as soon as you can get that clear perception of your personality, so you guys can do this now if you've got a pen and paper there. I think I got Benny to do this the other day, is write down and be honest with yourself. So the best time I recommend for anyone to do this is first thing in the morning before you turn your phone on and get distracted by life, is write down all of your strengths, all of your weaknesses, what a lot of your thoughts are that, keep popping up throughout the day. What are your beliefs, your motivations and your emotions? Okay, so 5 years ago, my strengths were sport and exercise, like I was fit. That's what I thought I was really good at. And then it turned into partying, chasing women. That's what I thought I was good at. Weaknesses was really anything else. I thought I lacked so much self-confidence that I didn't believe I was capable of achieving anything. So the thoughts that kept going through my head when I would cheat on a partner, I'd be like, oh, that's just what I always do. And the boys applaud me for it. So let's go back and do that again next week. That was a thought and a belief. Another thought was that I was never going to get out of the construction industry after the football. So that's what my life was. Like I was destined to be in a job that I hate, be around people that were negative. Right? And that's what kept going through my mind. So if I kept focusing on that, what do you think happened? I stuck in that game for, actually I didn't stay there very long, but longer than I should have. And then work out what are your motivations? What's going to keep you going at the end of the day? And my biggest motivation at the time that allowed me to keep reading literally was money, because I wanted to have a lifestyle where I could travel and see the world more. So at the start it was money. Now it's changed, but you got to identify what it is that's going to get you moving forward. Okay. So self-awareness, obviously, if you read down there as well, also allows you to understand other people, how they perceive you, your attitude and responses to them, because obviously one of the most crippling things is comparison. We're always looking to the left, like I'm looking at Owen right now, and just judging. I wish I was as successful as him, wearing happy socks, okay, and doing all this thing. And it's so hard not to do. People will walk into the gym, right? We'll walk down the street, what car you're wearing, what clothes you're wearing, and we'll constantly be comparing to how we're doing with other people as well, and where we are, in this timeline of success, which, the old model was go to school, get a trade or a uni degree, have a house by this age, have kids by this age, be married by this age, whatever order it's in, and then, be driving around Australia with a caravan by this time. And if we're not doing it now, which a lot of people aren't because times have changed, we're freaking the fuck out and we don't feel good enough. So we put our own self-worth and self-confidence on external things that are out of our control or don't align with, ultimately what we want to be doing in the future anyway. So if you can create that self-awareness, you can calm yourself down and understand that you're on your own journey. You've got different goals, different habits in place, and a different direction for where you want to be going. And, if you've got that in place, you can then be like, right, who do I need to be hanging around that are going to constantly make me feel good for the decisions that I'm making in my life? Okay, to get me to where I want to be. Because if you're decided you want to go this way, but you're still hanging around with people who are going the other way, you're going to constantly be having that battle. So there comes that point in time where you need to change your environment, or at least start shifting, so that you can really start excelling and amplifying what you already currently wanted to do. Okay? I'm just going to stop the share for 1 second just so I can see if there are any questions. No, nothing in the chat. Cool. Cool. So carrying on from that, before you can make changes in yourself, you need to know what there is to work on. So once again, the importance of actually taking the time to really think about what your strengths are, what your weaknesses are, what your motivations are, what your thoughts are, who you want to become, basically where you are now, who you want to become, what's the gap, right? You need to fill that in so that you can really identify what you need to work on, because there's some weaknesses that you don't need to work on because they're not, important for where you want to be going. And there's some strengths that you have that really aren't important for where you want to be going. So you need to focus the time on the things that you need moving forward, okay? Because then you go from being productive, not busy. So when you're obviously aware of your strengths and limits, you'll be more confident about what you can and cannot do. Self-confident people are more assertive about what they believe, right? That's common sense. Do you have any questions, Ed? If you have any questions, drop them in the chat there. See, I'll open the chat up. If everyone can see that on the right-hand side. Cool. So key areas for self-awareness. And this was the game changer for me. Okay, first of all, understanding what personality type I was. For me, you can do all those. What's a good personality test one you've done? Oh, have you done any? Hey? Herman Brain.
Yeah, it's one.
It's a good one. Obviously, it tells you what personality type you are, whether you're reserved, soft-spoken, or the one I've done on colours is a red, which means just know what I want and just work for it and sacrifice a lot of stuff, which is basically a hardcore way of going about things. And probably there's a few things about that I don't like, but it's really important to understand what your personality type is, because when you have people who are the opposite to you, it's really hard to understand their point of view or why they might not work as hard or have the same priorities as you. Okay, but ultimately, when you've got that self-awareness for yourself and other people, it makes it a lot easier to get along with people and learn a lot more, and ultimately the ripple effect of that. Secondly, knowing your personal core values. So I've got mine messages, but saved on the background there, so I know what I want to say yes to, what I want to say no to, what drives me ultimately, because I don't want to be busy. I want to be productive and doing things that are going to be adding value to my life, right? Whether it's because I'm learning and moving further forward in what I want to be doing, or it's just fulfilling me, right? Because ultimately, and going back to a holistic standpoint, if you're just chasing one thing, so if I was just chasing one of my values off the list, which might be adventure, for example, or health, and I let the other 5 important ones slip for me, I'm going to be feeling unfulfilled, right? So I know if I'm ever feeling down, depressed, sad, whatever it is, or just not feeling well, one of my values isn't being met. And for me personally, one of the biggest or the most common one that is always neglected is adventure, because I get so caught up in trying to build business, train a lot, and do other things that are important to me that I put adventure on the back burner, right? So ultimately, there's things in your life right now that you might think life's going great for you, but you still feel like something's missing. It's one of those values that's not being met. And once you understand that you can meet your values in everyday life, like for example, adventure, you don't have to go on a around the world trip. You could set up hide and go seek in the gym or wherever you work, right? And still get that sense of adventure. So it's about learning how to meet your values without having to do anything outrageously difficult in order to achieve that. Next, we go on to habits, right? Habits are obviously what you're doing day in, day out. They lead the results that you're going to get. So if you're wanting to be fit and healthy like Owen, right, you wouldn't want to be having poor habits like eating burgers, okay, not exercising, smoking. Okay, so it's important to identify what habits you have in your life currently. And one of the things for me 5 years ago was I never read books. I didn't hang around good people. I had a habit of drinking. I had a habit of taking drugs. Okay, so for who I wanted to become and be a successful, person, my version of success, everyone's is different. The habits that I had were never going to get me there. So it's then about being able to really look at yourself and say, okay, well, this version of myself is not going to get me to where I want to be. So I need to grow. Right? I need to change habits. I need to replace them. Obviously, you can't just cut them out. We need to replace them with something that's going to move me a little bit further forward. Now, they don't have to be extreme. Use smoking as a habit, for example. Don't have to 100% cut it out straight away, but it might be going from a pack a day to 6 a day, and then from 6 a day to none, or however it goes. But over time, ultimately moving yourself towards it, depending on how disciplined you can be or how badly you want the result, is how quickly you're going to change those habits. Right? Then we look at our needs, and one of the biggest things here is like if you look at masculine and feminine relationships, right? One of the key things is in a relationship where most relationships fight or have arguments is that most men need trust, right? It's one of our things that we need. We need to feel trust, and women need to feel what's the word? Or love and acceptance, right? And often, like if women don't trust the men aren't getting that feeling of trust, so they don't want to give the love and acceptance back to the female. So there's this broken feedback loop, right? Whereas if we can understand what needs we need, and if you're going from a relationship here, or whether it's friends or partners. Okay, it's understanding what needs your partner has. Okay, so that you can constantly allow them to get those met as well. Because if you want to, ultimately continue to move forward, it's about knowing what you need, what other people need, and getting those needs met. Because if people aren't bringing that to your life, or if habits aren't bringing, allowing them to have those needs met, you need to change it. It's ultimately like just saying yes to a heap of stuff during the day purely because people are asking you to do it, but none of it's aligning with where you want to go in life. Okay, so you can see how having the self-awareness around what you need allows you to then say yes to things and no to things. And you've probably all been there before where you've hung out with people who, you may have just met and they feel like you've known them a whole lifetime. And then there's other people who you've known a whole lifetime and you're like, for fuck's sake, I just need to get those people out of my life. And the same with going to functions. There's functions you go to and be like, that was the biggest waste of time ever. And there's other functions you'll go to and you're like, I wish they were on all the time, because they're getting your needs met, or they align with your values. So the sooner you can get clear on that is and where to get that met, you can stop going to shit that doesn't align with you, or stop hanging around with people that don't align with you, and start hanging out with more people who do. It's cutting through all that crap. That's when you can go from being super busy, right, to doing things that are productive and value adding to your life. And ultimately, the last one is getting clear on what your emotions are, right? How do your emotions impact your decisions? When you make big decisions, are you thinking logically, or has something burred you up about it? When you have an argument with your partner, oh really?
Yeah. Really
is it still beeping now?
Every time we get a message.
Oh, sorry.
Notification. Can you turn it off?
Yeah, sorry guys. How do you know that?
Message. One of your listeners.
Oh, Liam. Thanks guys for the feedback on the beeping. Lost my train of thought now.
Right.
That's all good. Yeah, so understanding obviously your own feelings and what causes them, because obviously we can feel, we give meaning to everything. So if we feel sad, it's up to us to understand why we feel sad. What is it that needs to be met or isn't being met? Okay, so what makes us feel angry? What makes us feel excited? How can we get more of whatever emotion we want in our life? I'm not saying you're never going to feel sad. You're not ever going to feel anger. We need to feel all of that to truly experience everything, but it's important to then be in control of like, what's making me feel angry about this? Is there confrontation in this? Is it, I don't like being challenged. Is that what's making me feel stressed and angry? Right? So rather than you going off and arguing with someone, you can be like, right, well, this is triggering me for whatever reason. There's a learning opportunity here and I want to better myself. So I'm going to listen, right? I'm going to reflect, and then I'm going to either take the lesson or the feedback and move forward, or, I'm going to present my side of the story, for example. So it's really understanding, because people who just jump the gun and are often reactive instead of proactive don't end up anywhere, and they're always playing that victim mentality, right? So it's important to understand how your emotions are affecting you, why they make you judge people, why they make you feel certain ways, and get on top of them. Because if you're feeling lonely, right, you're giving meaning to that. Now, then obviously what happens when you feel lonely, you might turn to drugs, alcohol, just to take your mind off that, or you might hang out with people who are wanting someone else to drink with, purely so you can, meet that value, get that need met, and ultimately change your emotion, when that's ultimately not the best way to go about it. So 3 areas of self-awareness, and I'll leave you with this one here, guys. Obviously, emotional self-awareness. So get really clear on understanding your own emotions. So a good book is Emotional Intelligence by Daniel Goldstein. I'm pretty sure Goldman, one of the two, but Google it. Really great book, or audio book. Accurate self-assessment. So once again, going back to understanding your strengths, weaknesses, thoughts, beliefs, and understand where they came from. Are they your own beliefs, or have you adopted them? Are your thoughts positive or serving you? And then going back to self-confidence, right? So understanding your skill set, understanding what you're good at, and how your thoughts are making you feel about yourself. Because if you're lacking self-confidence, that's the first place you need to start working at. And then, it might start with daily affirmations, hanging around with people who build you up, constantly listening to positive stuff, right? Or even a career change. Like if you're not feeling confident in a line of work, it's just as simple as when you first started your job, I'm guaranteeing you weren't confident in that situation. But because you kept showing up every day, eventually you met people in the workplace, right? You learned what your role was, you became more confident. It's the same with building self-confidence. It's what area do you need to improve to be more confident in yourself? Okay, where is the environment or the people that are going to help support you grow in that? And how are you going to become more effective and efficient in improving that? So once you address all of that, it then helps you improve your overall self-esteem. Cool. So we'll leave it there, guys. My brain is fried tonight. Whoop. If you guys have any questions, throw them in the chat or just shoot me a message on Instagram. But thanks so much for tuning in. Thanks, Elle, for tuning in. Liam, Ben, thanks, boys. Tony, thank you. And from Owen. I'm off to have a good night's sleep. But thanks so much, guys. Post any comments or just, once, like I said, drop them on Instagram, any questions that you have. And if you want to be directed in more in depth in any of that, let me know. Have a good night, guys.
Thank you for listening to the Man That Can Project podcast. My name is Lachie Stuart, and I hope you enjoyed this episode and found it helpful. If you did, please take a moment to rate and review the Man That Can Project on your favorite podcast platform. And don't forget to subscribe to stay up to date with our newest episodes. We'll see you again next time.